Okay guys, just going to give you a little bit of a demonstration of how the plasma cutter works, cutting this 3mm thick 20 by 20 angle iron. As I described, I'm going to use this as some framing inside the main framing to hold the polycarbonate. So I'm going to cut this 20mm side of the angle iron down to a 10mm width on one side, and we'll see how it goes. Okay, take two. This has to be the worst cut I've done yet. Of course, it's the one I get on video. Not too bad. Always needs a bit of a clean up with the grinder afterwards. That's to be expected. Um, and of course it will need re-straightening. They always need bending a bit as the heat gets into it, and then one side of it gets reduced in thickness. It tends to warp a little bit. So I'll get the grinder onto that, clean it all up, do the others. Okay guys, another update. I've finished doing all my stitching on the welding here for the main part of the framework. Ignore those for now, they are not connected. So once doing all this stitching and grinding it all, get back and getting it all level and smooth the way I wanted, I then went out and purchased a bit of this rust guard, which I believe I've got in shot there. Yes, rust guard cleaner solvent, just to get all the contaminants off it so that it could be painted. But before doing so, I also bought some of this turbo metal bog with a bit of glass fiber embedded into it for strength, and rather than having to stitch up, as in stitch weld, all of the gaps so that it's welded all the way around, which is obviously stronger, but takes a lot of time, a lot of welding, and it's already way strong enough. There's a weld every 10 millimeters, 1 centimeter, or just under half an inch. I've got a spot weld or a stitch weld. So I've purchased some of this bog, which I've then been through and filled up all of the gaps. 90%, 95% of all of the gaps. I'll probably find a few spots which need touch-ups, but I'll stop the recording there, take the camera off the tripod and show you a bit of the close-up of what I've done. Okay, here we are looking at the stitching. I think that shows it pretty well, where I've filled all of these holes between each individual stitch with the bog. Filled up the corners a little bit where it's hard to get in and weld and grind. So that does a reasonably good job, I believe. Saving a bit of time. I'm probably going to get in here and clean that up before I paint it. It's a little bit shabby. So filled that all up, let it dry, sanded it all back, and that has saved me a lot of time welding. And yeah, it's pretty solid, ready for clean up and paint. So the next thing, and as I said, I use this gear here to clean it up, and then this gear here to fill up the holes. It's pretty good stuff. So now my next thing is I've marked some points along here, 3 points between there and there. So instead of having a large pane that effectively, once filled with polycarbonate, could be kicked in and somebody could walk through, I've cut 2 of these for each pane, recessed the corners a little bit so that they can sit there, drop in. I shall use a square on here and square that up. Oh, not a bad guess first up. So just square that up so that they're nice and straight. And then I shall tack weld that one onto there. And then again, the same process there. And that will give me like a foot gaps. I believe it'll make it look a bit nicer as well. So also one there, not exactly there, but about there. I'll check on my markings and measurements later, but they're pretty well there. And there, yep. So that's effectively what it will look like once I have welded them in. Just going to weld them in on the corners here, through here, bit of a tack on that join there, on both sides. They'll be strong enough, and then that'll protect the polycarbonate a lot better. And if somebody does bash their way through the polycarbonate, you're going to need a grinder to cut these out to be able to access freely. So that's where I'm up to, and I shall weld these on, grind them up, get it ready to flip over, and make my frames out of, excuse me wandering around like this, make my frames out of this gear that I cut down with a plasma cutter before. So they go on the other side, and 4 of them to make 8 pieces to go around the inside of the opposite side. So there's the frame there, polycarbonate goes on, and those pieces I pointed out will go around the inside of the frame. Okay, last time I spoke to you, I was making up the last of the frame for the door. I've constructed, welded up the cross members, cut, I think I was just cutting them out and I had them ready to go in previously. Well, they're in, they're welded up, they're grinded back, and I've made the internal framework to go around the inside. So bars across the outside, polycarbonate, and then framing around the inside, which will secure the whole thing together, but can be pulled out if I need to do some repairs on it. So I'll just pull the camera out of the tripod and give you a bit of a close-up on what I've done. Okay, I'll move those over there. So this is the basic structure. I'll get rid of some of that light coming in there. Sorry about the glare. Yeah, some of the welds are still a bit messy, but I can't be bothered with the clean up too much. It's all going to be painted over. I don't think you'll see much of it. If you do, I'll do some cleanups on it later. So I think I'd showed you that side last time. So I'll just put that down and spin it round. Righto. Here we go. So I've put these bars in here now, welded them in, got it all sitting pretty good. So that's all flush now so that the polycarbonate can go in there and the framing in behind that. I have welded on some hinges. So what I did is I reamed out those holes just a little bit, got down to some steel, and I welded through the holes here, spot welded it, and then welded all the way around to get the ultimate strength. So I've got two of those on, they're fine. And now I'll show you these. So this is the way I have constructed the internal framing. So welded on the flat sides and ground back so that it doesn't look too, well, sorry, not that it doesn't look too anything, it's just so that it sits flat against the framing. So this being going in that way, that sits in there and drops in there. That'll be attached up against the polycarbonate like so. So that's the bottom piece, and this is the top piece. Now I've put a mark on here somewhere, punched a little mark into here. Excuse this, I'll edit this bit out. Oh, there's a lot of spatter on there, I'll have to get rid of that. There it is. There's my little punched in T, so I know this is the top. And I'm moving them around a lot, it gets a bit confusing at times. So that fits in there. And of course there's a 10mm gap between where the polycarbonate sits. So that's what it'll look like from the inside. I have now got the job of painting it. I've already cleaned it all up with some rust guard metal prep liquid, so she's nice and clean, and I'm about to do the painting, so I thought I'd just do a quick update on that so I didn't miss out on any of the construction. I think those hinges will work well. I bought 3 hinges, but I don't think it needs 3. It's no heavier than a normal external timber door. Having just polycarbonate in there, that weighs almost nothing. So strong, but not too heavy. Okay, well, that'll do for now. I'll get back when I've done a bit of painting. Okay, well, here we have this Sunlight polycarbonate. It's Sun Tough Sunlight 10mm multi-wall polycarbonate sheet, and I'm going to start cutting it with, have a go with this jigsaw. I'm pretty sure it'll do a good job. It's a fine blade and should clean it up pretty well. Unfortunately, I went off a little bit when I started getting out of my reach. Only a mil or two. And I've got 20mm of framing angle iron to stick it behind, so can't see that being too much of an issue. So I can now confirm that a jigsaw, I've only got it on the first set of rotation, This has got 3 different sets. It's got straight up and down, small, medium, high rotation. That is the blade rotating like that. So yeah, pretty happy with the way that cut. Well, very happy with the way that cut. So I'll reposition this. Just having this wedged between these two to stop the vibrations. I'll do the same thing again at 920. So I'll mark it. 918, as I said. Yeah, so I might just cut it straight down the edge of that one. Right, so that gives me a nice edge to cut down. Got that. And whack that one on there. It's pretty even. And we'll give it another go. Down that edge. This should be easier because I'll be able to follow the line that runs down the pockets, because it's got a handy little line and I'm cutting straight down it, so this should be easier. Don't you hate that? I had it too close to the workhorse, broke my blade. Doesn't that rot your socks? Okay, well, I've changed to another blade. I don't have another really thin blade other than a metal blade, so I'm going with a metal blade. As you can see, the original blade that I was using makes a nice clean cut, whereas the metal blade is leaving a real burr on the bottom layer of this polycarbonate. So a fine wood blade is better than a fine metal blade. So I'll just grab, oh well, they're the teeth on the wood blade that I was using. Pretty fine compared to the teeth on the metal blade. So too fine. So I would recommend using this one. There you go, that's a better view of the broken blade. Much better sized teeth. Okay, a final clip for the steel frame door which I've been making. This will be the end of part 2 and the end of this project. I'll just spin you around and I will show you the finished project. I believe last time I was just cutting the polycarbonate, and I've got all those pieces cut, installed a steel frame around the edges, painted it all up and fitted it to the space, as well as put the door jambs and striker plates and whatnot in. I've also installed a small window section above the door itself, so that'll add even more light in. So I'll spin around and show you how it went. Okay, here we have it. There's the door in place. I think looks pretty good. I'll give you the long shot. There we go. Lets a fair bit of light in. This is all closed up, it's getting late now, so roll the door there. And the new door here. You can see through it pretty well. I think it turned out pretty good. So, all set in there. I've put a few marks on it here where I was doing some touch-up paint along here. A couple of little swipes, little spot of black paint there. Soon comes off, another one there. That sort of stuff. I'll touch it all up. As you can see, probably down in there, there is silicone all the way around. So when I'd finished my frame, I put a bead of silicone all the way around the inside. I had it laying over there in space on some workhorses set up as a table. So I put a bead all the way around the inside. Then I dropped the polycarbonate itself in, pushed it all down. Then I put another bead of silicone all the way around and dropped the frame in, pressed that down, let it all go off, and that's the final result. So 2 panes, so we'll just move through. I think that looks, before everybody says, oh, what the hell's with your wall, that's where the old gate post used to be. So there was a post there, there was a post down there. I've cut that post off. There was a post here, and the old gate system used to run from that fence there, which I want to pull out. Wife doesn't want me to, but I think I'll get my way in the end. And the old gate system came along here to there, and then along here, and then there was another gate post there, and the end gate post there, and the door, the gate swung off there and latched onto that. So in the process of pulling that off, I've exposed that horrible different paint colour there, but I'll get to that. So I think the white door on the black cladding looks quite good, and of course there's my top window which I've put in. So white, painted the hinges white. Polycarbonate works well, I reckon. I've got to do a bit of a touch up here with some paint. A couple of marks here. I had a terrible spray gun, and in spraying that I didn't get a very good job. But I'm very happy with the way it's turned out. So yeah, there we have the new door in place. I think it works quite well, and nice easy locking system. So she's all locked up and reasonably secure. It's in some good light towards the window which goes into the dining room. So just wanted to show the finished project on the steel frame door, and I'm very happy with it. So
Thanks for watching Forge Right, and I'll see you next time. Bye.